Testing, this thing on?
Your cappuccino has arrived.
I'm Jason Sievert, brand marketer for Incredible Marketing, and this is your Incredible Medical Marketing Minute. Welcome to today's video. I am obviously extremely excited because we are introducing a brand new 10-part video series on the 8 elements in creating a medical website that converts. It's not just about creating 8 elements in a website that converts. And it's not just about helping create a medical website that's good. It's about creating a medical website that converts visitors into patients. So everything that we focus on in these videos are going to be specific to medical practices and medical websites. Now you might be thinking, hey, doing the math here, and you said 8 elements, but there's 10 videos. And the reason being is because we're going to do an intro video first, where we're going to talk about the why it's important to have a website that converts. And then also you're probably wondering, why are we breaking this up? Why is it in different videos? That's because rather than having one large hour-long video that you have to scrub through to find your specific information, we're going to break it up. So, if you want to watch it from the beginning, you can watch them sequentially, or, if you're struggling with something specifically, let's say it's your strategy, just the beginning to start off, you're going, how do I strategize my website? You can just go to that video. Each one's going to be about 5 minutes long. You can watch it, you can learn what you need to. Let's say that you don't know much about SEO. You built a pretty website, but you don't even understand exactly what goes into SEO. You can go to that video and learn more about that. Or, let's say you have a website that you think is really good, but you're getting complaints that from visitors that it just sucks and they're not liking the experience. You can go to, the element of user experience and learn exactly what you can do to improve on that. So that's why we're going to break it up. And, each video comes with its own article. So not only are you going to get the video, but if you just want to go find different parts in that video, it's going to have a fully laid out article that's going to break it down into the sections that we talk about in each video. And then to top it off, at the end of this whole series, we're going to provide an entire guide with everything that we talked about, a downloadable PDF that's free to anybody. So without further ado, let's get started. Element 1 is going to be strategy. You want to make sure that before you do anything, you start with a good strategy. This is where you'll be taking a look at yourself, figuring out exactly who you are. You'll be looking at targeting and looking at your audience and figuring out exactly what your audience needs are. You'll also be defining your goals. It could be something like you want to build a website that's educational for your patients, or you want one that's going to lead them the quickest way to picking up the phone and calling you, or you want a website that's going to show off all your great work. Let's say you have a lot of awards and certifications or great results. You want to make sure that you have a website that displays all of that. You got to define what your goals are right off the bat. And then the last part of strategy is the fun part. It's the planning. After this, it's going to get increasingly difficult to build your website. So have fun with this. Have fun with planning your mood boards. Have fun with taking a look at who you are and who your patients are, and just enjoy this moment. After that, we'll talk about element 2, which is our user experience. And this is important. This is the design, not just making it pretty, but making it function for conversion. And this means first, we're going to talk about designing your website to be mobile first, not just mobile friendly, because mobile nowadays has overtaken desktop usage for internet browsing. So you need to make sure that it's your first thought. Then we'll talk about the layout of your website, which is making sure that you have everything set up for the highest conversion, studying heat mapping, understanding your patients' behaviors on your websites, and making sure that you funnel your visitors to the CTA, the calls to action, so that they can make that buying decision. A lot of the user interface has to do with aesthetic, making sure that you simplify things and find areas where you can limit distractions to make sure that things are aesthetically pleasing. And then we'll talk about branding. We'll talk about why it's important to have a consistent brand, to represent who you are, and to make sure that you leave a good and lasting impression on your visitors. Then we'll move on to element 3, which is user interface. And this is going to be things like your navigation, making sure that it's set up, it's simple to navigate, that you have proper CTA placements, that you have predictable navigation, making sure that you don't try to reinvent the wheel, if you will, and confuse your visitors. Then we'll talk about site speed, where we're not just talking about fast load times, but we're also talking about how to make sure that you limit the amount of clicks to get your visitors where they need to be on your website. The more clicks that a visitor has to go through, the higher likelihood they are of leaving your site. Then we'll talk about responsiveness, There's tons of different devices and browsers these days, so making sure that your website is responsive to all different sizes and shapes and types is really important. And then finally, we'll talk about interactivity. And this is more important than you realize. You need to make sure that if somebody hovers over a button, that it has some sort of reactiveness. If they click on something, that there's an action that's taken, so it's not just flat. You know, we always say that your website is your online brochure, but it really shouldn't function as one. It needs to be interactive. Then element 4 is going to be content. And a lot of people think of content as written words, but it's a lot more than that. It can be audio, it can be visual, it can be video, it can be anything that you can think of. Content is everything. And as we've heard before, content is also king. So we'll talk about written content, how to play around with your keywords, how to make sure that you're educating, how to build value with your written content. Then we'll talk about illustrative content, meaning graphics and the way that you design your website to break it up so that it's not just a whole flat page with pictures and text. But then we'll also go into media, and that does include the pictures, the video, all the different content pieces that you have on your site that are visual. And then we'll finally end with our FAQs. And technically it's a piece of written content, but it's something that is worth talking about because although FAQs are on every website and they seem mundane, they're extremely important because it bolsters your credibility. And not just your credibility to your patients by being able to answer their most common questions, but it also bolsters your credibility to Google from an SEO perspective, because this way you're able to be found. The more times you use those keywords, keyword variables, the more likely you are to boost your rankings on Google. Element 5 is going to talk about SEO. That's search engine optimization. So we're going to talk about on-page SEO, off-page SEO. We're going to talk about link strategy, and we're going to talk about keywords. And this includes just normal keywords or long-tailed keywords, and we'll go into all the descriptions. This is going to be the more technical element, but I can assure you it's one of the most important elements that we have in here. We'll make sure to try to not use really technical jargon, but to make it as easy as possible for you to understand so that you can build your website with incredible SEO. Element 6, practice information. This is something that's often overlooked, but it's very, very important. You'd be surprised at how many websites we see that have missing practice information, incorrect practice information, and lose a ton of conversions because of it. So we'll discuss the proper way to put all of your practice information in that, from your contact information, making sure that it's correct and up to date and properly placed. We'll talk about the doctor information, which is also extremely important, making sure that you have all of your providers listed on there and that you build your credibility by having all of their accomplishments and awards and certifications listed, and also making sure that you provide a picture and building that comfort level and level of trust with your patients by them being able to see the providers that are going to be providing the care for them. We'll also talk about making sure that all your service info is on there. It seems like it goes without saying, but you need to make sure that every service that you offer is on your website and has its own dedicated page. And each page has tons of educational content on there, before and afters from those procedures or services, and FAQs, and then a call to action on every page as well. Finally, we'll talk about specials and events, another piece of practice info that is often overlooked and left out. Making sure that if you have any specials, that you have a dedicated special page to that. If you have any events going on, that you host them right there on your homepage banner, and making sure that any specials are front and center so that you can continuously drive people down the sales funnel. And I mean, that even includes things like pop-ups. Sometimes if you're offering specials, have a little pop-up come on when they go to the website, says, 20% off this. You're able to capture their information and again, just lead them closer to that sales. Element 7 is going to be trust factors. These days, people are seeking trust more than ever. There's a very famous quote by George Orwell that says, "In a time of universal deceit, telling the truth becomes a universal act." And that's very true here. People want to be able to trust you, and that's a huge piece, if not the most important piece, converting a visitor to a patient. So these are things like reviews. We always tell our clients, don't be afraid to solicit reviews. Don't be shy. People leave your practice. There's text message marketing follow-ups. You can leave them with review cards. You can email them. Just make it easy for them to take that next step and leave you the review. This is also things like awards and certifications. I'm sure that you guys have tons of plaques and certifications up on your wall in your practice, but that'll never be seen if you don't get the patients in your door and into your practice. Think of your website as your digital wall to display your awards and certifications that help also build trust in your practice. We'll also talk about showing your work. That means your before and afters, photos of actual procedures, sometimes even videos of procedures being done, but make sure that you have places on your website that show your work. And then also case studies. Case studies is kind of taking the reviews and testimonials and before and afters one step further by taking a whole procedure that you've done and kind of building out an entire case study and showcasing it on your website where you have the procedure, this patient came in for this, here's how we tackled the problem, here's the results, you have before and afters, you have a testimonial from the patient, and then of course you always have a call to action on that page. So this is just kind of taking those reviews and testimonials one step further and building full case studies that people can dig into, especially if they're dealing with the same issues. And finally, element 8, and this is the one you've been waiting for, conversion factors. We're going to discuss all of the pieces that your website needs to have to ensure that your visitors become patients. So we'll talk about call to actions, all the different types of call to actions and the different strategic placements for those. We will discuss social media. Believe it or not, that is tied to your website. Any ads that you run, any posts that you do, anything that you do on social media is going to drive traffic back to your website. You want to make sure it goes to the right pages and also that you get them at the right stage of their buying funnel. We'll also discuss integrations. This includes things like your email marketing integrations, your marketing automation integrations, EMRs, live chats, even heat mapping integrations, everything that will help you convert. And then we'll talk about contact options. This is another one of those things that's often overlooked, but very, very important. So you're going to want to make sure that you have your contact information in the most strategic places to make sure that they can contact you wherever they are on the site. If any visitor is on your website, ready to make a buying decision at any time, they need to be able to be just one click away. We'll talk about strategic placements and different contact options and how to do that. And our final video in the series will be our FAQs. As a medical marketing agency that has helped hundreds and hundreds of medical practices worldwide, you can imagine that we fielded thousands of questions about medical websites. So we've compiled the top questions that have been asked, like, can I do this myself? Do I need an agency to create a website for me or can I do it myself? We'll talk about how long should my website take to make and how long should it last? And then we'll talk about things like the difference between a microsite, a custom site, and a landing page. And then we'll talk about tons of other questions that have been asked. And that will conclude our video series. As I mentioned before, we will provide a free guide that includes everything that we discuss in the video series with visuals, charts, graphs, all the fun stuff that you can download for free as a PDF online. We'll also be along to answer questions. If you have any questions along the way while you're watching these videos, reading the articles, or reading the guide, feel free to reach out to us. Like we always say, we're here to help medical practices grow. Whether you're our clients or not, our job is to tackle the biggest issues that are facing our medical practices these days. You'll have all the tools you need to build a medical website that helps convert your visitors into patients. Cheers.